Good hot Sunday afternoon, July 6th of 2025. Thanks for taking time to pause in your scrolling and take a listen to what I have to say this afternoon. I want to dive right in to what I want to talk about by putting this on the screen here. And I want to share this with you. I wrote and published this on June 19th of this year. Cancel culture with a surprising twist. Along with a friend, I organized a symposium that took place on Saturday. It featured a public Roman Catholic intellectual. Dr. E. Michael Jones visited Maine Friday and Saturday of last week. My friend and I secured a brew pub as the location for the event slightly more than a month before. The provocative nature of Dr. Jones's work caused us to be overly cautious in our discussion with the woman who managed Gritty McDuff's in Auburn. At the time, I could not think of a way to offer full disclosure without closing down the opportunity to enjoy the aesthetics, food, and hospitality of Gritty's. I prayed that the inevitable cancellation wouldn't occur, but knew instinctively that it would be canceled. We did offer the name of the speaker in passing. It can be argued that the manager chose not to do diligence. It was canceled with barely enough time to secure another location. My deep and emotional surprise came as a result of how the cancellation occurred. This former employee of mine, Mike Hine, who is highly praised, deservedly so, on many pages of this website, caused the cancellation. So I'm reading this from my blog, michaelheath.org. You run across this video on YouTube, you can go there to read this and more of the backstory on what happened. The location was not publicized. He found out about it somehow and called the owner of Gritty's. Hine gleefully celebrated his accomplishment in multiple texts to my friend and me. God opened another door in time, and the symposium was very successful. But the ferocity and obvious personal hatred evident in the multiple texts to myself and my friend were deeply unsettling. The most profound hatred in all of the texts was aimed at the Roman Catholic faith of my friend who helped me with the symposium. Hine has not gone there with me yet. I entered the Roman Catholic Church in 2020. Mike is Missouri Synod Lutheran. Our paths have rarely crossed since I resigned from the Christian Civic League of Maine in 2009. We reconnected in the fall of 2024 a few times at an Augusta brew pub. He was generous, insisting on paying for the food and brew. Consistent with his prohibitionist views, he didn't drink a beer. I did, and he paid for it. More than once, I questioned him about his public attacks on me during a time in 2020 through 2023 when he claims that he penetrated the socialist communist movement in Maine. He allowed that his attacks on me were general and merely political. I believed him. At the same time that Mike and I were reconnecting last fall, he was deeply involved with an X group, Twitter, called Pine Tree Patriots. Among the more notable members is a man and his wife. Tim and Jennifer Bodnar produce a morning live stream on X. He brands his media work Uncivilized Media and calls himself the Truth Slinger on X. Mike may have been the one to introduce me, I don't remember. Regardless, having discovered him, I was drawn to his narrative and style and became curious about his online work. I learned that he was doing effective political work, pushing back against the creation of trans gendering-friendly health clinics in Maine public schools. He was making especially notable gains in a village near me called Gardner. And he was doing it from a log cabin in the woods without the benefit of electricity. His internet work is powered by a generator. His effectiveness emerges from his use of live streaming on X. He rebroadcasted the Gardner School Board public meetings, offering provocative and entertaining commentary whenever they took up the issue of the health clinic. While I chose to focus on Tim's political effectiveness, Mike Hine focused on Tim's drinking and smoking. Tim's mixture of the Protestant version of the gospel of Jesus Christ with drinking and smoking made me even more curious, especially because Maine is the home of Prohibition. That political movement started in Portland, Maine in the mid-19th century. The Christian Civic League of Maine returned to its anti-gambling prohibitionist roots after I resigned. The institution muted concerns with sexual orientation theory or gay rights and managed to win the respect of both sides of Maine's political establishment, evidenced by the recent retirement celebration of the man who followed me. The event featured the attendance of Maine's sitting and former governor, along with one of our serving federal senators. Around the beginning of 2025, Mike decided to force me to choose between Tim and himself. Mike researched Tim's past and came to the conclusion that Tim is an immoral grifter who must be destroyed. I refused to choose sides. In an email that I sent to both men, Mike cut me off in a written response. Tim invited me to be interviewed in a live stream, notwithstanding the fact that we hadn't at that point met one another. We'd just been direct messaging one another on X, and Mike Hine was amping up his personal attacks on Tim. To begin his questions about my relationship with Hine, Tim showed an X post that had been published on Hine's X account for 3 years. I had never seen it before. It was a personal attack on one of my children. It wasn't political. It was hate-filled, and it left me speechless. Tim graciously stopped the live stream when he learned I had never seen the post before. Within hours, Hine scrubbed his X account. Hine disappeared from my life until the hate-filled texts celebrating his success getting the symposium canceled. He didn't, however, disappear from Tim's life. He deepened and broadened his vicious personal attack on Tim and his wife. He even managed to draw in an estranged daughter and create a legal crisis for Tim that has obvious political overtones. Mike's tactics to destroy Tim and bring about a political result that he claims not to support the establishment of the Gardner Tranny Clinic included the most vicious and hate-filled conduct I've ever witnessed in my life. And that's saying something, since I've been on the receiving end of a lot of political stuff, to include death threats and lying like you wouldn't believe. But I've never witnessed a political activist stoop to the depths of personal viciousness that Mike employed and is employing right now against Tim. Mike's goal in this war with Tim is to destroy his credibility with existing and potential supporters. He attacks Tim's drinking and smoking. Additionally, he spreads poisonous lies by email, phone call, and online posting based loosely on Tim's past. Tim, on the other hand, is publicly thanking Hine for his pressure and allowing that his hate has helped him, Tim, decide to stop smoking and drinking. The fruit of Mike's political activism in the past month is the last-minute cancellation of the symposium location and the creation of the Tranny Clinic in Gardner. I never considered Mike to be more than a paid employee, though I may have inadvisably used the word friend in describing him on occasion. I'm sure you'll understand, having read this account, why or having listened to this account, why I now consider him to be a dangerous enemy. So I blocked Mike on X, but X enables I think I don't know if you have to be registered or not, but if you just go to x.com, you can find out. And if you're interested in more, you can search on the @ at real MG Hein, H-E-I-N, and that should bring up his account. And I don't know if the posts are public or not. I don't recommend you go there, but if you have some reason, then maybe. But he's still relentlessly and viciously attacking Tim. I won't have anything to do with him ever again unless he repents, apologizes to me, and convinces me. But I'm not. It'd be great if that would happen, but I'm not going to hold my breath. So I also want to take some time on this Sunday to watch a bit of a podcast. You can find this podcast on Rumble if you go to Rumble and search on Michael Jones. Michael Jones. I think he has a channel there and it should come up. And you'll be able to watch the whole thing. We're not going to watch the whole thing. We're going to start watching it. He does so who is Dr. Michael Jones? So he has a PhD in American literature that he obtained decades ago, having written his thesis on Nathaniel Hawthorne, the author of The Scarlet Letter. You may have read that in high school. He went to teach at St. Mary's College in South Bend, Indiana. With his wife, and he spoke out while there against abortion, and turned out that this Catholic college had been taken over by pro-death feminists, and so they made an issue out of it, and he didn't survive his first year. He was fired from St. Mary's, from a Roman Catholic college, for being pro-life, and this surprised him, and so he researched it and decided that he would speak out in defense of Christianity's historic position on human life in the womb. And he started a magazine called Fidelity Magazine, and today that magazine is now called Culture Wars, and you can subscribe to it. Highly recommend you do that. And he also started writing books, and he's written many, many dozens of books. And I discovered him through podcasting. So I discovered him just how you are discovering me. Back when, before data over cellular towers became a thing, that was real and affordable. I was downloading podcasts when I was home connected to the internet. And then as I delivered packages for Federal Express, I would listen to podcasts. And it was during that period years ago that I discovered Dr. Jones, because he's very generous with his time answering questions that podcasters pose to him during their podcasts. So he has been eager for years to do interviews, and so that's how I became acquainted with his thinking. And in recent years, he started his own podcast called EMJ Live. And this past Friday, he produced one. One last point before I bring him up here. So that's him, EMJ Live. His books are at fidelitypress.org, and the magazine is culturewars.com. But on a whim, I sent him an email a few months ago and asked him if he'd be willing to come to Maine to speak, do a symposium that we decided to call Libido Dominandi, which is the title of one of his earlier books. And the subtitle was The Gay Lobby versus Authority. So he agreed to do it. I was surprised. I don't know him well. I did interview him on a live stream a few years ago, but that's it. We had never met personally, but he said yes, and he came to Maine, spent a couple days, got to meet him, and he spoke on that subject, and also on the subject of his new book, which is titled Walking with a Bible and a Gun. So the morning lecture, which we did record, and I'm told that the quality is good, and we will be making it available. If you're interested, you can check this channel, or you can go to my blog, michaelheath.org, and I'll be letting people know that it's available. I think it's also going to show up on Dr. Jones's platform, culturewars.com. So he does EMJ Live on Friday nights at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time most weeks, so once a week. He goes for an hour, starts with a rant that lasts maybe 15, 20 minutes, and then he opens up the floor for questions. And he takes audio questions via Telegram, and then he takes written questions up until the top of the hour, so from 5 until 6 on Fridays. Highly recommend, if you're at all interested in politics or religion, broadly defined, politics and religion broadly defined, I highly recommend that you add Dr. Jones to your menu, to your diet. Even if you disagree with him, I think you'll find his commentary helpful and challenging, and of course I find it inspirational. So inspirational, in fact, that he played a part in leading me into the Roman Catholic Church 5 years ago. So I'm not recommending it so that you'll join me in the Roman Catholic Church, though of course that would be welcome. I'm recommending him because, as I said, if you put him on your menu on your listening menu, I think he'll thank me, even if you end up disagreeing with some of his points. So let's go to this view here, and start it. And I'll be stopping it along the way and adding local color, local comments to sort of reinforce what he's saying.
Hello, welcome to another episode of EMJ Live. We are here in South Bend, Indiana, and today is the 4th of July. One of the most impressive experiences that I had when I moved to South Bend, Indiana, 46 years ago in 1979, was the 4th of July celebration. We had just bought a house. We walked from our house downtown. At that point, there was a big hole in the center of town waiting to be filled by a building, which came a couple of years later. But everybody assembled around this hole, which I think was kind of prophetic of what was going to happen here. And we watched the fireworks display. Now, there were all kinds of people there. That's the impression that I had when I was there. This was a celebration for everybody in South Bend, Indiana. So there were people that looked like lawyers. People actually wore things like summer suits or blazers and ties at that point, coming downtown with their families. On the other end of the spectrum, there were bikers from the local biker gang with their biker chicks dressed in their black T-shirts with black leather jackets, and pretty much everyone in between. In other words, this was a celebration of our belonging to a community, and that everyone belonged because everyone here was an American. And America had an identity that we could articulate, not only articulate, but we could also celebrate. I have never been particularly a flag waver during my entire life, but this was a celebration that gave me a good impression of my first impression of South Bend, Indiana. Over that period of time, we have seen the total erosion of that identity. What we saw in its place was the rise of identity politics, which means the Democratic Party would choose certain groups and confer on them a privileged status in the hopes that all of the people in that group would vote for them. And
I remember, so Dr. Jones is 77 years old. I'm 63 years old. But even I remember that America that he described, where it wouldn't even occur to you that at a public event like a July 4th parade, I should think of myself as anything other than an American. In other words, an African American, or a gay American, or a woman, female American, or that category, that way of thinking came later. When I was a child, it wasn't that way in this country. But of course, it's been that way now for decades. And I was honored by God, I believe, to have an opportunity to argue this point for 20 years as a leader, an institutional leader in Maine, representing religion broadly, evangelical Christianity, in particular, as the executive director of the Christian Civic League of Maine, which of course was created in 1897 and turned 100 years old on my watch. So, and I'm going to do a program uh, regarding that, but I don't want to go there today. Um, but so I feel like I have a unique perspective on the point that he's making here because of that experience, because of being here in Maine and putting on the suit and the tie and blow drying my hair, and before the internet was a thing, responding to journalists, quote unquote, reporter questions who were all, even at that time, the 90s and the first decade of the new millennium, the media was very, very biased against my position, against our view, against Christianity's historic defense of marriage being between a man and a woman, and family being multi-generational and including children, etc. This was just, it was my honor to represent that truth. And not only is it a religious truth, but it does make sense politically. It's reasonable. It's a reasonable position for a state, for a culture, to incentivize or to upgird, to support marriage and family. I never really heard a good argument against our position. They would always just pivot to left, either Marxist or communist talking points, or they would attack me. And of course, their favorite approach toward the end was to attack me, to make me the issue. Because with the power that they had in the media in Maine, with the amount of money that they were choosing to spend in Maine, Maine has only 1 million people, and they have bottomless resources for money. That's what made the most sense, was to make it seem to everyone who watched the evening news that I was the reason that this dinosaur view, this view from prehistory, still existed. So if Maine just got rid of me, then it would go away. So, and it was shocking to me how effective it was with my own base. But it was, and continuing with Dr. Jones.
In the hopes that they had enough groups to win elections. Okay, it was a risky strategy, but this was the strategy that Bill Clinton became famous for. He was the man who really mainstreamed identity politics at a time when Jesse Jackson was going to the University of Berkeley in California and saying, hey, hey, ho, ho, Western culture's got to go. We didn't need any of the roots that the people brought here with them. We didn't need European identities. We didn't need Polish neighborhoods or any of that stuff. All we had were the new identities. And of course, one of the most favorite identities of all was the homosexual. And this rose to fame until reaching the high point of homosexual identification, which I would say was 10 years ago, when the Supreme Court handed down its Obergefell decision, enabling a man to marry another man. This
that decision, the Obergefell decision, happened on my wedding anniversary, which is June 26th that year, whatever year that was. I'm not sure he mentioned it, but so my wife and I went to the Supreme Court steps either that year, or I think it was the following year, and maybe a couple of years after that, to honor the traditional definition of marriage. But nobody seemed to care. The Supreme Court had destroyed civil marriage, and there was some gnashing of teeth politically, but nothing substantial ever emerged to overturn it. And here we are in 2025, and it's worse than ever. I think the average Maine guy and gal have come to think of, all forms of sex as legitimate and good, and there's just no moral component to any of it anymore. And who am I, who are we, to look at two men or two women and say that they're not married, or to say that they can't have children, or whatever. I mean, I think most Christians, they've come to regard this as a totally personal and private decision that they, the church, and the state have no business speaking to in any way. Certainly not to judge it. And so here we are. That's what we've come to. And Dr. Jones goes on in the podcast. I'm not going to continue with it today. It's time for me to go wrap up today's episode 1 of MS, the latest iteration of MSH Live. With a thank you for watching, and go ahead and give @TruthSlinger a follow on X, and go to Rumble and search for E. Michael Jones, and you can find the EMJ Live for Friday, July 4th, and listen to the rest of the podcast. You'll learn a lot. You'll be encouraged. You'll realize that you're not alone. There are people in the tens of millions around the world who agree with you that marriage is between a man and a woman, and that there is a moral component to sexuality, and that all institutions have a duty to think and act rightly toward these human institutions like family and marriage, and that if we choose to act wrongly or think wrongly, then we're signing up for disaster for ourselves and for our loved ones. So, God willing, I'll be back tomorrow, probably around midday, on YouTube. Might take up the hate speech issue. I want to do that early on in the series of videos that I hope to create here. I want to look at Google or YouTube's hate speech policies. I'm going to put them up on the screen and talk about them, because I really have no interest, never have had any interest in hating anybody really, or hating gays, or hating anybody. But yet, what I've seen happen in my lifetime is, when it comes to public communications, it's all about hate. I have to always, with my mind, right? I have to always be checking as I speak. Am I hating am I being a hater? Am I hating? Crazy times to be alive. But check me out at michaelheath.org. And I'll see you tomorrow.